Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Hammond, and I actually paid to see this. Well, the Oscars have come and gone, and I'm back here in the tuxedo t-shirt one last time to kind of take stock over everything that went down, from the inspired to the bad shit to the handiwork, shall we say, about midway through. It was a slight improvement over last year, but that's not saying all that much. It's like saying Revenge of the Sith is less of a train wreck than Attack of the Clones. Accurate, but needing a lot of context. Now, most of my rage I put through my fingertips in the live diary, and sadly screamed at the top of my lungs in probably ill-advised tirades that most likely alienated half of my friends. Passion will do that to you. Love makes you do that, I think. That's what a great man said on Sunday? Sure. But when I do go on my bitch fits, it is with the desire to improve things, to do better, because even when the Oscars are infuriating, I still love them because I know how great they can be. So with that in mind, I want to do something constructive with the Postmortem this year and go over what I think are 5 solid ideas to truly make the Oscars better next year. And I'm not talking about, hey, let's do whatever the hell Disney wants. No. So with that in mind, let's get to it. Number 5 is that, simply put, the Academy needs new leadership. I don't begrudge David Rubin his tenure as president. He got the Academy Museum up and running, and that was his baby for a lot of years, so kudos for that. It even turned into a nice little segment for Wanda Sykes to tell some jokes, even if it was just 3 minutes devoted to the Academy sucking its own dick. But what happened with Disney and ABC can never be allowed to happen again. The original ask from the House of Mouse was to cut 12 of the 23 categories, more than half, for the sake of whatever nonsense they wanted to put in to promote themselves, including the utterly baffling decision to have Chris Evans play a pre-recorded segment where he verbally congratulated a deaf man on his Oscar win when he's backstage, all to pivot to a promotion and trailer for Lightyear that we've all seen in the theaters already. We can't do this again. As such, I know the Academy talked Disney down to only cutting 8 categories, but that was still unacceptable and 9 too many. We need a new president of the Academy, and we need an entirely new board of governors who will come in with the understanding that this idea of relegating anything to a pre-show is a complete and utter non-starter. Because while I understand that this is a TV event, it is a once-a-year TV event. The ratings don't matter. What matters is the fans and the film industry and everybody coming together, you know, that whole movie lovers unite thing, to celebrate the best that Hollywood has to offer. And let's be clear about this. This is the Academy's party, no one else's. These are film industry professionals celebrating and congratulating each other, first and foremost. We are invited to be a part of this celebration, to join the party, as is Disney. But name me any other party where some outside influence gets to dictate the terms of the party, not just for their attendance, but for the party to take place at all. It doesn't happen. Imagine if, say, you're booking a venue for your wedding. You've got everything lined up, the paperwork's been signed, you're ready to go. You've got your date set, everything's looking good. And then a month before your wedding, the venue says, oh, by the way, we believe in traditional Southern values and all Black people have to be segregated to the balcony. They can't sit on the main floor. You just don't do that. There's no way you agree to that. No venue is worth it. No hosting is worth that. So you either cancel the wedding, postpone it, break the contract with the vendor, do whatever you have to do to get out of that situation, because this is not tenable. Like I said, David Rubin's had a good tenure as president. He got a lot of good projects off the ground, but this is the signal that his time is up. He needs to resign. We need new leadership. This cannot happen again. Number 4, and this is kind of a niche one, but it's just as important. We need to overhaul how we nominate music, particularly original song. Not only should Billie Eilish have not won an Oscar, she shouldn't have even been eligible. This is for 2 reasons. 1, she herself basically admits that the song is lifted wholesale from Sam Smith's Bond theme from a few years ago, which also won an Oscar. I brought this up to friends and coworkers, and the response was like, well, most Bond themes are thematically similar. They all kind of follow a certain pattern. And that exactly illustrates my point. They are largely all the same. Therefore, they're not original. Just because someone else's name is on the lyrics and music by part does not make it an original song. It's largely derivative, if not completely stolen. You can't give someone an award for that. You can't say that this behavior is acceptable. So, no, it shouldn't have even been eligible on those grounds. But also, the film was released 18 months after the song. Now, I understand that the COVID pandemic delayed the release of No Time to Die. I get that. I also don't care. The whole idea is that an eligible film has to be released in the calendar year. So why does a song attached to said film get to be released up to and including, sometimes even exceeding, a year in advance? What we need is for some guidelines to be set here. We need to say, hey, the song has to be timely with the film. If you want to release No Time to Die as a song and make it a hit and make your money off of that, go with God. But once the calendar year runs out, if the movie hasn't come out, then the song is not eligible. This was a similar problem a few years ago when Don't Stop the Feeling was nominated. And that's a song I honestly really like. I'm not much of a Justin Timberlake fan, but I really do dig that song. It was released 6 months before the Trolls movie and has almost no connective tissue to it, even though it is actually featured as a musical number inside the film. It was released so much earlier than the movie because they wanted to get it radio airplay and make it the song of the summer and all that other nonsense. But while it did come out in the same year, that 6 months was a lot of time for people to get the song in their heads, but not the movie. And that's the key thing here. The movie has to come first. I don't mean it has to be released first, but it has to be the priority. So that's part 1 of this whole thing. We really need to change the eligibility rules. Part 2, alongside that, we need to make sure that songs are truly relevant within their films. You don't have to play it during the film. You don't have to perform it during the film. It can be over the credits. I'm okay with that. But it has to make some kind of thematic sense. It has to be able to be inextricably linked to the movie in your head. A case in point was Down to Joy by Van Morrison that got nominated this year. Okay, that's over the credits, but it makes sense. You really can't insert a new song into the timeline of the late 60s because it would be out of place and anachronistic. And you have Van Morrison not only composing the ambient score, but his music of the time is playing throughout the film. So yes, it does make sense in that context to have Van Morrison then write an original song to cap off the proceedings and have it played during the credits. That's okay. Compare that to Diane Warren's latest schlocky ballad, Somehow You Do, that was nominated for 4 Good Days. That movie we all know, love, and remember fondly. I liked the movie fine, but it barely even hit my register when it came out, and I didn't even watch it until literally while I was doing the Blitz. There's nothing in that song that makes you think of 4 Good Days. And 4 Good Days itself did not have enough impact to say, hey, whatever song's there is going to be something that I will permanently mentally link to it. It's just, hey, Diane Warren, You've been nominated a bunch of times. Write us a song. We'll have Reba McEntire sing it. That's just pure corporate bullshit, and it shouldn't be allowed. And then that gets us to part 3 of this rant. Stop nominating Diane Warren. What did I just say about having original songs? Literally, she's been nominated 13 times, including, I think, 7 of the last 8 years. Put all of her songs together. Most of them sound exactly the same. The lyrics are different, the melody is exactly the same. And almost none of them are associated with their respective films. I'll give you How Do I Live, because that was from Con Air, but again, that was just much more of a country hit. In fact, one done by 2 different performers. The one that wasn't in the movie got the Grammy for it. Don't Want to Miss a Thing also was done on the pop and country charts. Aerosmith's only #1 hit as a band, which is very sad, but we do at least associate it with Armageddon thanks to the music video and the clips from it. And then I think her first nomination for Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship from Mannequin. Again, if you're in the 80s, yeah, you do have that mental image, but name me the movie that Till It Happens to You comes from, or Grateful, or Stand Up for Something, or I'm Standing With You. Really, are any of those movies on the tip of your tongue? It was just a case after case after case after case where they said, hey, Diane Warren, write us a song. It plays during the credits, has no relevance to the picture. It's just tacked on to bait these nominations, and it needs to stop. I mean, honestly, does Diane Warren have dirt on the music branch? Is Diane Warren the entire music branch? Because there are no other logical reasons to say that she should be one of the final 5 every single year, even though all evidence suggests she is never going to win, because the rest of the Academy recognizes that it's just the same schmaltzy, schlocky ballad over and over and over again. You got to figure this crap out somehow. Number 3, and this is a big issue with a lot of Oscar fans, especially the ones who have left the show behind. Stop pandering. You see this in a ton of forms. I think the biggest one from this year's ceremony was Ariana DeBose winning for Best Supporting Actress. Her win had absolutely nothing to do with her performance. It's not that she necessarily gave a bad one. I didn't really care for it, but others could. I'm sure some of her voters actually really did like it. But that was secondary. What mattered was the headline of saying, hey, we've made history with the first ever openly queer winner. We needed that acceptance speech of, there's a place for us, because that's the line from the song. This is why she won every single ceremony. It was about a box check. It was about virtue signaling. It was about inclusion. And I'm not saying these are bad things. I'm just saying they need to be secondary, maybe even tertiary to the actual performance. Case in point, still from this year, Troy Kotsur. He gave arguably the best performance. It was absolutely out of nowhere, and it was fantastic. The fact that he is deaf and was playing a deaf character is secondary. He could have given that same performance if he was a hearing person and if this was a movie about hearing people. That's how committed he was to his character. That's a case where the representation or whatever virtue you want to signal or whatever politically correct message you want to make coincides with a great performance. There is no one who would say that he gave something subpar. Whereas with Ariana DeBose, the headlines were already written before she was even nominated. That's a huge issue. Aside from that, you have Disney's attempts to pander to a youth audience that just doesn't watch. You have to concede that at this point. The 18 to 25 demographic that they really want to reach just doesn't care. It's not that they can't, but they don't. And that's because of the corporate machine behind the studio influence. A lot of young movie fans only watch the same recycled franchise material that Disney or Warner Brothers or whoever sends their way. There were 4 Marvel movies last year. 2 of them got nominated for visual effects, but that's it. So when their movies aren't nominated, they don't care. And what Disney's trying to do is say, well, let's not make better movies. Let's force the Academy to give our bad movies more attention. And that's just not going to fly. You see this all over the ceremony, like the completely inexplicable 15 seconds of asking BTS what their favorite musical was. Like, I got nothing against BTS. K-pop's not necessarily my thing, but if I listen to Dynamite, I might, bop around a little bit. I'm not going to actively hate it or demand it be turned off. People can like what they like. But BTS has no meaningful relationship to the film industry. And if you're really trying to bait young viewers by saying BTS is going to be in the show, they were only there for 30 seconds. Once they're gone, they're not sticking around. The kids are going to go fuck off on their phones and watch something else. So you got to stop with these gimmicks. And if you want one more great example from this episode, this lovely little ceremony we had, your hashtag fan favorite and hashtag cheer moment. Because Disney and the Academy thought, oh, if we do something on Twitter, that's engaging with the social media and we can be the influencers and stuff. Nope. It was instantly co-opted and seized by Zack Snyder fanboys who basically stuffed the virtual ballot box to make sure that some random moment from the Snyder cut of Justice League got best cheer moment. And the fan favorite movie of the year was Army of the Dead, a mediocre CGI zombie fest that definitely didn't live up to the hype and had chintzy production values at best. I wanted to love that movie. I really did, especially after seeing the trailer. It looked exciting, but it was just a complete misfire. But Zack Snyder, fanboys equals profit. This grand experiment that the Academy thought up with Disney to further engage with the young crowd completely backfired, to the point where when they were going to devote a whole segment to these weird little offshoots, it ended up being just a quick tossed off montage countdown before going to commercial. This is what happens when you don't engage with the audience. When you think you know what they want based on corporate charts or finely tuned focus groups of only the people you care about. Again, the people you care about attracting aren't watching this. And it's going to take a lot to bring them back. And while, yes, young people watch a lot of shitty movies, they are smart enough to see through the bullshit. They do have some critical thinking skills. They know that there is absolutely no substance in saying, hey, hashtag my favorite Oscar cheer, blah, 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 for seeing a bunch of Spider-Mans. Doesn't work. You have to be direct with them. You have to engage them on their level, and you have to actually know what that level is. Otherwise, it just comes off as disingenuous. And it just falls flat. And in the process, not only are you not drawing in the audience you want, you're alienating the tried and true audience. The ratings were slightly higher this year, from 9.8 million last year, which was the all-time low, to 13 million this year, which is the second lowest ever. The difference? The pandemic subsided a little bit. We got to go back to the movies, and we got to see some of the films that actually got nominated. That's the actual reason. In the Academy's mind, and probably in Disney's mind, they think cutting the categories was probably what did it. They are wrong. This leads us into the number 2 fix here. We just need more transparency. I, for one, would be absolutely thrilled if we could see the vote totals. This is especially the case for Best Picture, which is done by ranked choice voting. I would be fascinated to see how many first place votes Coda got as opposed to, say, Nightmare Alley or Don't Look Up, or how many last place votes West Side Story got versus, say, Licorice Pizza. How many rounds did it take? How many eliminations were necessary to get Coda over the line? Was it done on the first ballot? That would be amazing. Did it take 5 or 6? Did it take all the way to a 9th? This is cool stuff. And for the rest of the categories that are decided by a plurality, give us those totals too. How dominant was Ariana DeBose's win for supporting actress or Cruella's win for costume design? How close was live action short? These are the fine details that really interest the people like me who make an effort to watch the Oscars every year. And when we get that information, we can then share it with our friends and say, oh, look at this. This is cool. This is how this worked. This is how that worked. And thereby grow the audience. Use your fans as a promotional tool. It's pretty easy if you know how to do it. But even outside the vote totals, why don't you just bring us into the process by showing us why these films are essential, why they're high art, why they're worthy of these praise. Give us some insights into how the bake-offs work. Show us what the bake-offs actually do. The Academy did post some of the bake-off footage on Twitter well after the fact, like I think a couple of days before the actual Oscars. But we would love to have that well in advance so that we can basically follow along with the process. Or get into the nuances of the actual art forms. Do some interviews and some segments with some great cinematographers so we can find out what it really takes to get this job right. It's not just holding a camera pretty, it's lighting schemes, colors. There's so many different factors that go into it. It's lenses, it's equipment. Let us all in on that. Let them educate us, let them teach us. I mean, I've been a professional editor for more than 15 years in various capacities, in addition to my writing and my game show work. And I don't even think I'm remotely qualified to edit a feature film because there's so much more that goes on depending on the project. I would love to see an award-winning editor walk me through a scene. Show me how you cut the shots, how you adjust the sound, how you incorporate any minor elements and visual effects. Let us in. Let us truly engage with the art of cinema and the science. That's what AMPAS is, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Let us see it in action. It would be brilliant. And then most importantly within this aspect, we need to ban for your consideration campaigns. I know that sounds like a pipe dream and there may not be the most realistic way to get it done logistically, but a lot of the fun of Oscar night is ruined by knowing the results basically in advance because a lot of the major categories get decided throughout award season because these are not just industry professionals rewarding each other and their friends, but because they're marketed to directly by the studios. There's some famous examples of how this has gone awry. A few years ago, there was an original song nominee that actually got disqualified. It was just some title track to a Christian movie called Alone Yet Not Alone, that there were members of the music branch that basically got bribed to nominate it. Not cool. And really counterproductive considering it was a Christian movie. Back in 2008, 2009, Slumdog Millionaire would arguably not be the best picture of 2008 and picking up a slew of awards at that ceremony were it not for the overly aggressive campaign methods and tactics of one Harvey Weinstein. Guess how that aged? So we need to just find a way to say no more campaigning, no more backloading a ton of nominees into November and December in hopes of getting the most attention and then using the nomination as a means to draw box office. Why not actually release the films over the course of the year and know that they're good and worthy of consideration because of the way they perform with fans, with critics, with box office, all those things. The Academy has an internet hub where members can watch international feature submissions and short films and all that other fun stuff during the nomination process and during the voting process. So just use that year round. Whenever a movie comes out in the theater and it's eligible by the Academy's rules, you put it on the hub. People can then watch it, either on the hub or out in the theater. Then they can go online and say, hey, did you watch this movie? Yes, I did. Rated on a scale of 1 to 10. Oh, the Batman is easily a 9 for me. That was some awesome shit. And then don't lock it in. You can say until the end of the calendar year, which is the eligibility period, you can still adjust your votes so that come December when Avatar 2 or something comes out, somebody could be completely blown away and say, oh my God, this is even better than the first one. That is a 10 all the way. I rated Batman a 9? Well, in retrospect, maybe it's only a 7. Click down. And then at the end of the year, your numbers are locked in, and that determines the nominees. That way we know people are actually watching stuff, and we're not using cynical, nihilistic advertising as a way to say you're the best without actually being the best. Again, while I absolutely love Summer of Soul, its win for documentary feature, its consensus across all of award season, has an asterisk on it because they gave Questlove a built-in segment in last year's Oscars because Disney owning Hulu and Searchlight was the distributor to basically advertise the film within the broadcast, not during the commercials, but in the broadcast. So from April on, you had a built-in biased jury of Academy voters saying, hey, if this is being featured in the Oscars, it must be worth something. And I'm never going to know for sure if people voted for it because it was actually good or because they bought the sales pitch. Same with West Side Story. It got pre-built, Disney-funded segments devoted to it inside the Oscars last year, and then it got flooded all over the place with the trailers to the point that when it actually released in December, it basically came with an FYC packet inside. And that's just dishonest and creatively bankrupt. So yeah, I'm sure there are ways, and I'm not saying it's going to be an easy process, but if anything can happen, if anyone can do it, it's the Academy. This is the realm of movie magic. So make some magic to fix one of the biggest problems that separates the movies from the fans. Stop making it a marketing ploy. Just like we need to get money out of politics, we need to get it out of the Oscars. And that leads us to the number one change we need to see. And I can't believe I have to say this, but it really is true. Only nominate good movies. I can't believe this has to be said, but Amy Schumer herself said it best during the Oscars. She looked right at Adam McKay and said, hey, Don't Look Up is nominated for Best Picture, which means that Academy voters don't look up reviews. It's certified rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Only Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close has a lower rating during the preferential era of Best Picture nominees. It shouldn't have been eligible. It's a mediocre movie, and at times it's outright bad. I know it has its defenders, and the audience score is slightly higher than the critic score, but we have all of these tools at our disposal. Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, Cinema Score. There are tons of outlets out there that rate movies based on audience reaction, critical press, artistic and technical merits. There are metrics we can use to truly measure whether or not a film is any good. And by that, we should basically find some way to set a standard that says, if you don't meet this standard of quality, you don't get nominated. And this goes for a lot of the specialty categories as well, like makeup or costuming or original song. Going back to what I said about Diane Warren. If you're just having a cheesy ballad tacked on to the credits of a mediocre movie, but hey, because it's Diane Warren, we're going to say it's original song Oscar quality. No. If the movie itself is shit, I don't care how good the song is. The movie's already shit. I'm already annoyed. There's absolutely no reason why The Weeknd should have been nominated for a song in 50 Shades of Grey. And I love The Weeknd, but Jesus, no. The fact that I had to watch that movie to see the context in which we heard that song was honestly painful, figuratively and literally. We need to just say, like, hey, you don't get to try to buy credibility by having one good element in an otherwise terrible film. I don't care which standard you use, whether you use box office, audience reactions, critics, some combination thereof, but there has to be a formula that says, if your movie's not good, then it doesn't belong on our stage. And yes, that means occasionally we're going to see a movie that I absolutely love or somebody else does that didn't quite make it because it didn't resonate with others as much as they did with me or someone else. And on the flip side of that, there are going to be movies that I think are terrible that still get nominated. Like Kristen Stewart getting nominated for Spencer. I think it has about a 70 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not, if it's not certified fresh, it's close to it. But the consensus is it's a mediocre, campy, even bad movie, but a lot of critics believe that Kristen Stewart's performance saves it. So in that respect, I get the idea saying, hey, the one nomination we're going to give it is for Kristen Stewart's performance. I wholeheartedly disagree with that because I hated the movie and hated her performance, but that's just my opinion. I'm part of a pool of people. I'm part of a group. And the idea is coming to consensus, getting an understanding of one another. So, yeah, you got to just say, like, we've got to have some kind of level where you say, if it doesn't meet it, it doesn't count. And if you're worried about saying, oh, but then we're going to shut out all these fan favorite films, you do that anyway. In what universe are you nominating Fast and Furious Pi for sound or some other nonsense? You know, the Benghazi movie was the last Michael Bay film to get a nomination. That was for sound editing and or mixing. I forget which one, back when there were still two categories. These are done largely through the bake-off process. But again, let us sit on the bake-off process. Let us see how the presentations are made by the various production companies and studios to say, hey, I know this may not be the best film in the world, but look what we did to Eddie Murphy's face. And be like, okay, that's cool. Now let's go check the score. You're at 46 on Rotten Tomatoes. Sorry. Well, here's this other movie that also does some fun makeup stuff, and it's got a 75. Guess who's in? Problem solved. You keep doing this, and if you keep fighting back against the corporate machine, even just a little bit, you're going to see a gradual sea change in the quality of the films nominated and in their viewership. Again, if you get rid of FYC campaigns, then we can watch these movies over the course of the entire year rather than wondering when they're going to come out which week in December, and then be like, oh, how come this only got like 20 million at the box office? Because we had exactly 2 weeks to nominate it after it got released, so nobody watched it in time. These are relatively simple fixes, folks, and honestly, while I wouldn't have picked it for Best Picture myself, I am so glad that Coda won. Because this is a film, a very small independent film, really, that came out in theaters and on Apple TV Plus with almost no fanfare in the middle of August, which is usually a dead period right before award season starts and the Prestige Fair comes out. And through whatever means, through whatever voting process, it beat out the likes of The Power of the Dog, Don't Look Up, Licorice Pizza, all these other movies that got crammed into the end of the year, trying to fight for whatever attention they could get. And everybody just said, well, here's this really good film over here. Came out in August. It wins. We need more of that. The Black Panthers of the world being great films that happen to be released in February, we need that to happen more often rather than less. I still love the fact that Silence of the Lambs back in 1991, I want to say, came out in January and February over the course of the nation, and it still won Best Picture. You just don't see that anymore. Coda is a step in the right direction. It's a glimmer of hope. So, yeah. How about we just nominate some good movies? How about we just make that a rule? So that's where I stand. I know I complain a lot and I rant a lot. I'm cynical. I'm an asshole. I'm annoying. I get it. But underneath all of this, every time I just go off on a tirade or a tangent or a diatribe or any other word from the thesaurus that means the same thing, it's with love and with the understanding that we can all do better. I look at this like a disappointed parent when he sees his kid come back with a B knowing he could have gotten an A, and getting really pissed off when they come back with a D knowing that that happened because they actively made bad decisions. So I make these suggestions with love and with the genuine desire that we adopt these changes to make the process better. Because, honest to God, while this was a slight improvement over the absolute shitfest that was last year's Oscars, that's not really saying much. And while the ratings slightly improved, they're still the second worst ever. And if we don't really aggressively look at the actual problems and fix them, then next year, the in memoriam reel is going to be led with the Oscars themselves. Until next time, I'm Bill Hammond. Keep it locked on the blog, actuallypaid.com. I actually paid to see this. I'll see you next time.